And here in the section on culturally appropriative, you see the word brave. Don't use the word brave anymore. And instead of using the word brave, consider using, well, none. Do not use. What's up, my freedom-loving friends? Hey, you can put all your worries to rest because Stanford University just came out with the Elimination of Harmful Language Initiative. We're banning the term American because it's offensive, according to Stanford. Now, as you can imagine, I am 100% on board with the thought police at Stanford University now informing everybody what the most offensive terms are. Terms like American. I mean, what an insult. And then they provide a recommended alternative. They also provide some context. So I want to go through a few of them, but starting right at the top, this one's just catching the most flack from free thinkers. God help us. I mean, free thinkers, what do we have to do? We tried to get rid of them. They're still around. Here you can see in page 7 of the Elimination of Harmful Language Initiative from Stanford, American, instead of using the term American, use the term U.S. citizen. Wow, what a big difference. And of course, the context. This term often refers to people from the United States only. No shit. Thereby insinuating that the U.S. is the most important country in the Americas. Objectively speaking, it probably is. And regardless, insinuating, who cares who's insinuating that? And by the way, what's wrong if someone does think that? Like, what's your favorite food? Well, you're insinuating that's your favorite food. How dare you? Oh, you mean I'm not allowed to insinuate that my favorite food is my favorite food? That's exactly what the thought police are trying to tell you, okay? Pay attention. Stanford University here, do you understand? It costs $80,000 a year to go to this school to get rid of your intellect so you can be one of the dumbest people on earth. And that's what we're going after. It's gonna make you extra safe. So they have, I went through them all. It's hundreds of terms. I just want to hit a few of the highlights because it's hilarious. And I think they can do you a lot of good. You freedom-loving, free-thinking, offensive person. I gotta tell you, I learned a lot from this. I mean, my language, all this new speak, it's great. So here you can see the Elimination of Harmful Language Initiative. It's this glorious 13-page document. I mean, this is great. So just make sure we see here in the left-hand column, this is instead of. So that's the offensive term. And the second column, consider using. That's, okay, new speak. That's what you're supposed to say. And then the context. By the way, all their context, they're just BS rationalizations where if you just took it unto itself, it's like, all right, like that sort of makes sense. If you take their context completely out of context of reality. Let's get into it. Okay, the term OCD. You're not allowed to say OCD anymore. Is it a diagnosed disorder? Yeah, but you're not allowed to say it. What you should better say is detail-oriented. Well, there's a difference between OCD and being detail-oriented. But OCD, it's offensive. It's kind of like acknowledging a reality that someone might be uncomfortable with. That's what anything offensive is based on. Which, by the way, anyone can be uncomfortable about anything. Therefore, if you extrapolate this, it's offensive, you can't say it language, you're stuck in a place where you literally can't say anything. You might say a lot of words, but your words will say nothing. And here in the section on culturally appropriative, you see the word brave. Don't use the word brave anymore. And instead of using the word brave, consider using, well, none. Do not use. Okay, don't use the word brave? What are they trying to do? Let's put a couple things together. You can't say American, you can't say brave. How many brave Americans will the tyrants have to worry about if we outlaw the word brave and we outlaw the word American? You'll have a lot less brave people if you actually erase the word brave and therefore the meaning from the collective consciousness. I don't think they're erasing it, but they're trying. Let's move on. Oh, here on page 6, the word she, that's offensive. What are you supposed to say instead? Person's name or they. Check out the context. Unless you know the person you're addressing uses she as their pronoun, wouldn't it be her pronoun? It is better to use they or ask the person which pronouns they use. That's right. Just so if you didn't ask, instead of like an adult female just assuming she's a she because she is a she, it's better to assume they're a they. So you just project multiple people, plurality, they're they. Hey, they, how are you? They're like, what? You think I'm schizophrenic, have multiple personalities? That's actually kind of offensive. Then the term or the word transgendered. Can't say that. What can you say? Transgender. That extra ED at the end is very offensive. Why? I don't know. I guess it reminds someone of what they tell you they are. Oh, and here's an important note, scholarly note. Remember, this is from Stanford University. These are the scholars that know more than you or I. So take note of this. Under the heading imprecise language. Imprecise language is terms that utilize euphemisms, vagueness, or inaccurate words to not say what one is trying to say. I would argue someone who's using any of these words they list, they're actually using what's called precise language to say exactly what the fuck they mean to say. Under the imprecise language section, that's where we have American, like do not say American. Are we being taught to hate our country? Not by Stanford University that's funded by the Chinese Communist Party. They would not want to teach anyone to hate America. So much so that you just can't say American, okay? And then we have the term Hispanic is offensive. So this is white people telling Hispanic people, hey, basically what you are is offensive. You're Hispanic. That's pretty offensive. So instead, use the term Latinx, which, by the way, I saw a study that shows 95% of Hispanic people don't like the term Latinx. But just the scholarly know-it-allness for these white people in Stanford to say, no. The Hispanic people definitely want to be called Latinx. The Hispanic people are like, no, we don't. We're like, shut up, we know more than you. We're white people at Stanford. I don't know if they have any level of self-awareness here. And then you have the term Karen. That's offensive. What should you use instead that's less offensive? You should say demanding or entitled white woman. It's objectively 10 times more offensive. Which, by the way, if a term is accurate relative to you or a subject or a person you're speaking about, it is very precise language and it's aligned with truth to use whatever term reveals the most accurate description of that reality. And if someone has uncomfortable feelings that come up about that, shockingly, that's okay. And shockingly, that's their business, not anybody else's. Any level of offensiveness that comes up, it's based on insecurity, which, by the way, insecurity is part of the human condition, but being insecure about having insecurities, that's where you have this no-touch zone. You can't say anything that's going to make me feel insecure because I'll just get offended, which really means I'm so weak inside that I'm not willing to feel any of my insecurities. So those who get easily offended are really weak. The word weak is not on here, so I'm allowed to say it because it accurately describes what someone is. Hey, here's another helpful term. Stupid, don't say it. What should you say instead? Boring, uncool. By their own rationale, the term stupid is offensive. Okay, but calling someone boring isn't offensive. Okay, and then we have to protect the criminals here. So the term thug. Can't say it. What can you say? Suspect or criminal. Because someone who just committed a crime, we don't want to offend them. We're going to send them to a prison, female prison, if they tell us they're a woman. We're going to send them there, but we can't offend them on the way in. They've literally offended society with a crime, but we can't risk hurting their feelings. And then in the section, institutionalized racism, we see the word black box. You know, like an airplane has a black box. Or a box that's literally black. That's called a black box. Can't say black box. What Stanford recommends you say is hidden, mystery box, opaque box, flight recorder. Reason being, the term black box assigns negative connotations to the color black, racializing the term. Can you just imagine the immense intellects that follow this? They're sitting there looking at a black box. They're like, oh man, this flight recorder that has like this opaque color, like it's really dark, and man, I just wish we had a word to describe what this opaque mystery flight recorder box is called. What if we called that black box like a black box? Why would we do that? Well, because it's a black box. No, we're not going to do that. Next term, disabled person, offensive. What you should say is person with a disability. Vastly different meaning. Some would say like that's the same thing. You're just literally trying to control language, you psychopathic control freaks, but they're not that. They're Stanford scholars. So just keep that in mind. Homeless person is an offensive term. What should you say is person without housing. Okay, well, by that logic, okay, they're a person without housing. What else are they without? They might be without a car. They might be without an internet. They might be without a computer. They might be without a basketball hoop. They might not own one of those. So I think it's actually offensive to limit their identity to just a person without housing. Like, what else are they without? Appropriately, you should have to list every single item that they are without in order to identify that person. It's easier, quicker, more accurate, and well, just all more aligned with truth to call them a homeless person. It's just going to be better. They're a person without, then list everything on earth that they're without. And after about 9 years, when you're done saying that sentence, then that person probably won't be there anymore. So you're going to have to move on in the conversation. And then immigrant, offensive term. What you should call them is a person who has immigrated, a non-citizen. It's like, man, a person who has immigrated. I wish we had a word for that. So many words are there to represent a collection of words. So a word is a representation of a deeper meaning, a broader collection of words. So we're like, screw those words. Like, let's just do it the long, hard way, guys, because it's less offensive. And then prostitute. Can't offend a prostitute by calling her a prostitute. You have to call them a person who engages in sex work. That's literally the definition of the word prostitute. So it's like you can say the definition, but you can't say the word that definition uses to convey itself. Got it. Great logic. I didn't go to college. Obviously, this isn't natural to me. And the term rule of thumb, highly offensive. What should you say? Standard rule, general rule. Makes sense. I mean, rule of thumb, I guess we have to accommodate the population born without thumbs. Trigger warning. It used to be like, man, it's offensive to not use the term trigger warning because then someone might be offended by what they could easily be offended about. So we were taught to use the term trigger warning. The goalposts keep moving, people. So now we have to say content note. Here's why. The people who needed a trigger warning, they're so unstable that they need a trigger warning, and they're so unstable about being noted as unstable because they need a trigger warning since they taught us to use that term. Now we have to not use that term anymore because it reminds them of the reality that they don't wish to see. And then the term African American, which now you're supposed to say black. It used to be, you can't say black, you have to say African American. Now they're like, just moving the goalposts. We're going in a circular fashion here, guys. So this is the Stanford Elimination of Harmful Language Initiative. I am so grateful they took the time to come out with this. I am so grateful that a great institution in the US has taken the time up on their perch to educate us peasants and give us more permission on what we're allowed to say and revoke our right to free speech by trying to control speech. I couldn't be more grateful. And Stanford, I just assure you, I'll be paying real close attention to this. And I assure you, Stanford, you are not the laughingstock of every free-thinking American, brave Americans. Very offensive. You're not the laughingstock of all those people. You are being worshipped by everyone who's fallen for the idea of giving you $80,000 to have the illusion that you'll somehow make them more successful in life. Think about going to Stanford. You're paying $80,000 a year and they teach you this. It's like, cool, that's gonna better equip me for the real world, right? Yeah, it definitely will. Then you go out in the real world and you start talking like a complete moron. I dare say you'll definitely be better equipped for the real world. Just don't think about that too long, too hard. It's not in your best interest. So with that said, my freedom-loving friends, that's today's video. And this video is brought to you by the opposite of the Thought Police. It's brought to you by the Freedom Police, AKA my Freedom merch line. If you want to check out any of the old classics, bestsellers, as well as new designs like Make America 1776 Again, you can find all the Freedom merch at awakenwithjp.com. Almost every single piece of this will offend the Thought Police at Stanford. So if you're at Stanford, don't check it out. Otherwise, you can go to awakenwithjp.com if you want to a little support spreading the freedom vibes, and it's a beautiful way to help support me and my family, put food on our table, and keep our minds clear. So with that said, my freedom loving friend, I'll see you next time, and until then, stay free.